Welcome, Illumineers. It is time to take a rest from your quest and check on in to the Lore Keeper's Inn. I'm your host, Katie. Now, here at the inn, we encourage our guests to take advantage of our extensive DVD and VHS library. However, we can't spend all our budget on the fancy pants theatrical releases, and instead we have curated the next best thing, which is direct-to-video prequels and sequels. So, to make the most of our collection, I am doing a series of movie night at the inn where each episode, myself and a guest will discuss one of 29 prequels and sequels that never quite made it to theaters. We'll tell you the plot. We'll discuss what we liked. We'll discuss some concerns. We'll determine if it is as good, better, or worse than the original. And lastly, do we think there should be cards in Disney Lorcana from the movie? To close out, we'll go ahead and put the movie back on the shelf in relation to its peers. So we're going to put on a tier list of how it relates. So today, we are diving in to the 2003 sequel, Stitch. It has an exclamation point. Stitch, the movie. And with me is someone who is not only the queen of Disney trivia, but she is known for spreading the joy of custom beaded friendship bracelets throughout the Lorcana community. She is the one and only Caroline. Welcome.
Hello. I should have worn my bracelets. I didn't even
I
think
know.
about that.
I'm excited to have you on the show because now I can have you on record saying, I want a bracelet, and then now you have to get me one.
I
And so
was
then
already planning on making you a
Okay.
bracelet. You've been on my list for a hot minute. The list is long.
I know.
And
And I got on late because like after it was already taken off, I'm like, well, dang it. It's kind of like, but I don't care if I'm late to the party. I still want one. So,
You will get one. Trust me. I have plans because your logo is so pretty and it's like all the bright colors is like perfect for beads.
yes, I know. Cause yeah, we got lots of dark colors, but no, not here. Not here at the end. But here at the end, we're gonna talk about a movie. Now, we're talking about Stitch.
Yeah.
Stitch. This is the last time I'll do that. Stitch, the movie. So it was released on August 26, 2003. So the first fun fact I have about this movie is that the name of the movie I think is a lie. This was not a movie. This was an hour-long pilot.
You're not wrong.
It coming. I felt it coming. I was like, is this a pilot? Is it because like I'd never seen the TV show?
You've never seen the TV? Oh man.
I know.
Gotta watch the TV show at some point.
Well, I'm primed. So after this is an hour and 3 minutes, which I think like 3 minutes of it is like credits. So it's an hour. And yeah,
Perfect for TV.
I think it's funny though that they called Stitch the movie. So you're like, it's a movie. And they're like, well, it's kind of, I mean, it's a movie. It meets the criteria, but it's an hour and we're calling it a movie. It's Stitch, the long pilot. Either way. I'm only like a little mad about that.
What's extra funny to me is like, it's not even the pilot for the series that's called Stitch with an exclamation point. It's the pilot for a completely different series.
Yes, yeah, and we'll get into the what I'm calling the Lilo and Stitch extended universe. And it's also very interesting because not only is this movie, so it's the first movie that came out after the original one in 2002, but it's the second movie if we talk about Lilo and Stitch movies.
Yeah, in terms of continuity, it takes place later, which is
so
hilarious.
People say like, what order should you watch Star Wars and like what order should you watch certain things? And this, no one talks about it because I don't think anyone's really worried about it. But if they do, this is your first hint: is start with Lilo and Stitch, then go to Stitch 2, then you can watch Stitch 2, and then Stitch the movie.
It depends on what order you want.
It's true, right?
Because release order is also definitely valid, and it's something that we talk about with Star Wars or MCU.
It's true.
Chronological versus release orders, two sides of a coin.
Yeah. And there's a lot of interesting things about this movie. You might notice that they no Lilo in the title, and that was a decision they made, and then they went back on because they're like, that's not nice. I don't have any proof that's why they did it, but I think that's probably why is because they're like, what about Lilo? And they're like, okay, fine, that's Lilo and Stitch. But yeah, Lilo was dropped from the title, but then she was back for Lilo and Stitch the series. No exclamation mark. It's not Lilo and Stitch the series. It's Lilo and Stitch the series. And then Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch has a glitch. So I don't know what happened there. Good for Lilo though.
Arguably, I think Stitch has a glitch is actually a worse movie, but that is another episode that you will probably do with somebody else.
I know. I think that was the one that I'm gonna try to convince Brendan. His government name is not B squared. Because I remember liking that movie, but it's I have this, like, as I've been doing this series, like, I have the scientific hypothesis, and I think, like, the proximity, when you see it to how old you are kinda
Mm.
it'll impact, and so I saw that one when it came out, and I was like, "This is good. This is enough for me." But I think if I saw it for the first time now, I feel like this is not enough, but I don't know. I
So it's
haven't seen it, so
interesting. So in Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch was the first time Lilo was not voiced by Davy Chase, who I know we're gonna talk a little bit about very soon. But
I know. I
uh
does that I gave you the notes, so in theory, you could have Googled the answer, so you have to be honest if you knew the answer to my trivia question for you.
of course.
Okay.
But no, she was voiced by Dakota Fanning in
What? That's
Stitch Has a
crazy.
Glitch. Yeah, because Davy
That's
Chase was busy with other commitments.
like a higher billing, I feel like.
Yeah. May not have been back then, but, like, certainly now.
Wait, Dakota Fanning?
Yes.
I'm trying to think, when did Uptown Girls come out? Because I feel like I Am Sam is when she was, like, in the peak of this is her, uh so continue your fact. I'm going to search the timeline
Go
of
for it.
Dakota
No,
Fanning.
people actually, well, critics at least, uh, panned her performance because she was much, her vocal performance was much darker than Davy Chase's. Her vowels and her tone were not as young, optimistic, peppy girl.
This is in what, 2005? And so I'm still she's got
She
quite
def
the filmography. But yeah, she did Cat in the Hat in 2003, Uptown Girls was 2003.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, her star
I
was
don't
definitely on the rise at that point.
yeah, she's in so yeah, who knows? I
They were
these
they were friends. Apparently, Davy Chase, like, asked her to do it because she was supposed to and then had other obligations, and so she was like, "Hey, bestie, you wanna come fill my role for a movie?" And Dakota was like, "Sure." Didn't go well.
pretty sure she has like an Oscar or something.
I
So you can't bully her. Like, or at least she was nominated. So anyway, on my next podcast, where we go a deep dive into Dakota Fanning, someone at home who's a major Dakota Fanning fan is very upset that I am not nailing but that leads into the next kind of fact. Most of the original cast did come back for this one. And it makes sense because I mean the first one's in 2002 and then they're like, "Get back in the studio. We're making Stitch the movie." Except for the voice of David. And so I like looked up and his name is D. Bradley
I
Baker
love
and I
D.
was like,
Bradley
"Okay, what has
Baker.
he done?" You know this person?
Oh, yes, he's fantastic. He's done so much voice work over the years. He is most famous for, his work as, all of the clones in Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Yeah, that was the most like, "Oh, that's impressive." But the one I wrote is that he was the voice, the narrator, and Olnek from Legends of the Hidden Temple,
Yes, I
which is
had
insane.
before you said that, I had completely forgotten that. You, like, pulled a fact out of the recesses of my memory.
Yeah, because I mean, it is more impressive to be the clones because that they were
There's so
very
many of
impactful
them, and,
character
like,
and yeah.
to differentiate them in the way that he did over the course of 7 seasons and then the 3 seasons of Bad 3, 4 seasons of Bad Batch? I can't count.
Yeah.
Math is hard. Um,
We're doing our best here. We know
so
some facts. We can't know everything, and that's okay.
yeah, he's incredible, and he's such a prolific voice actor.
And then so it sounds like you're already a DeVay Chase super fan, so this you already probably know this, but she did 2 other very iconic. One is less iconic, it's only iconic if you're of a certain nerdiness, but the other one, I think people of our age, plus or minus 5 years, whatever that is, would know. What 2 other things was she also
So,
doing?
I looked this up because I knew one of them, but I didn't know the
Okay,
second
which
one.
one did you know?
I know her as Chihiro
Yes,
from
okay.
Spirited Away because,
Yeah.
certain kind of nerd.
Yeah, okay, good.
Uh,
You're a certain kind of a distinguished nerd.
yes, exactly. Um, but I am not a horror fan, and so I do not watch horror movies, and so her turn as the girl from The Ring was, like, not something I would have recognized her for, unless you
Smart.
are thinking of something else.
No. Oh god. So, I mean, I think, I won't ask your age, but, what?
We're
What?
we're close. We're close together.
Okay, because 'cause you're in your 30s. You
Yes.
just crested the 30s. So, I think you were, like, a little too young to go in the theaters to watch The Ring when it came out too, because like, I was, like, pretty young. I was, like, 14.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking about The Ring and my dog just opened the office door and I'm like, "Oh, it's happening. I didn't spread the tape." But, so in the m it was like I was at the age where I could finally go see PG-13 movies by myself,
Mhm.
and it's so scary. It's like it's scary to even, like, think about. It's one of those movies where, like, I don't know, it's because when I saw it I do need to watch it again. Because have you seen Succession?
No.
Okay, well, so the Logan Roy who's like, "Nah, I don't kill guys." This is a really good impression, but he's the one that's like, "You guys are all not serious people." He was in The Ring, and I totally forgot about it, so I need to
Uh,
rewatch it.
yeah,
He lives
I don't do scary movies. I'm not a fan.
well, smart, but she also she was absolutely terrifying in that movie, and
I have enough of, like, a cultural frame of reference to, like, know who the ring
yeah.
girl is. So, yeah.
And that's honestly sometimes, like, there's scary movies that, like, I'll never watch, like, I think I get Jason, like, I think I get what that's about, I don't need to see it.
Mhm.
He's chasing people and he has a backstory probably.
Right.
Maybe not, honestly.
Horror
Um,
movies are usually light on the backstory.
they are, they're kinda like, "Something happened and it was pretty bad and we're paying for it." But yes, she did Chihiro and so good as Chihiro to the
Yes.
point where there's a sub versus sub. I mean, the Miyazaki, dubs in general.
Are excellent. Yeah.
Speaking of the Fannings, they both were, Mei and Satsuko,
Yep.
so not Satsuko. That's the girl that died, I think. Either way, I know some things. On my other podcast, where we talk about Ghibli facts. So the last thing I wanted to do before we get into the plot of the movie is to orient the viewer, the listener, into the Stitch extended universe, Lilo and Stitch's extended universe, because it goes further than I realized. So we said there's Lilo and Stitch in 2002, Stitch, the movie in 2003, which is where we are currently, Lilo and Stitch the series, which aired from 2003 to 2006. So it premiered like a month. Yeah, the month after this movie came out. Then we have Lilo and Stitch. Stitch has a glitch, 2005.
It takes
Then
place.
what?
It takes place
Yeah, we're going back. It's,
prior.
it's a very, it's kind of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the multiverse of Stitch. Then there's Leroy and Stitch, is that the sandwich one? Is that the
So
sandwich?
no, so the
Okay,
sandwich guy is Reuben.
perfect.
Leroy
Makes
is
sense.
a later experiment that Gemma
Perfect.
creates after Stitch.
Wait, so he's like 627?
I think he's actually 628.
Wow.
Yeah,
There's
because
so much.
they do a 627 episode in the series. Leroy and Stitch is sort of like the big finale to the series, essentially.
Wow.
Like if this is the pilot, Leroy and Stitch is sort of the series finale.
Wow. I'm excited for this journey, and I'm glad I know this. And, I'm glad I accidentally did it in order, because you picked this, and I think you picked in the right order,
Yeah, this one's my favorite of the three.
which is I'll have some words about that. So then there's also Stitch, and it's not called Stitch, an anime, but it is an anime, meaning it is from Japan, and it's an animated series that started in 2008 and then kinda went on and off until 2015.
I've
I think
seen
it's
some
yeah.
clips from this. It's very interesting. It's not the route I would have gone with things if I had been in the writer's room at Disney, but it's it's certainly interesting.
Yeah, and I think they go I think Lilo's gone, like, I think she's out, like, they finally
Uh-huh.
got rid of her, like,
Yeah,
whoever wanted to get rid of her did it in this.
she starts to grow up, and Stitch doesn't age at the same rate that she does.
Smart. So, he's like the toys. He's the toys, but he's an alien. Um, so then the last 2 things we have is Stitch and I, which I first thought was Stitch and AI, and I was like, "What is this?" But no, it's a Chinese show, so I'm pretty sure it's Stitch and I, because Stitch and AI would be fascinating and terrifying, but no. That came out in 2017. And then lastly, it's coming around the corner. It's
Ugh.
scaring Disney fans everywhere. It's Lilo and Stitch, the live action film coming out next year,
I'm
2015.
so scared.
2015. No, that's 10 years ago, 2025. So that is I don't think that's a fun fact. It is a fact though.
It is a fact. It's not very fun.
It's okay, in its defense, when I saw, like, the little clip of Stitch, I'm like, I'm not super
It's
upset, like,
it's not as bad as I was afraid it was going to be.
yeah.
I still don't think it's gonna be good.
Like, he's perfect angel baby. It's hard when you take perfect angel baby and you're like, well, let's do it again. And I'm like, you don't have to. It's already perfect angel baby. You can
Right.
make a new angel
How
baby or
how do
something.
you improve on perfection, you know?
Which the answer is, what do you do? Well, if you're Chris Sanders, you make How to Train Your Dragon and you do the story, but just in a different setting and a different font. And so that's how you do it
And
is
then
you
you do The
create
Wild Robot, which just came out and is apparently
a
incredible, so
so yeah, that's the real answer is don't try to make that movie again. Just do it a little, change the font, change the little I mean, How to Train Your Dragon is very, very, very different. A lot more dark. Uh, I hear. I haven't seen the second and third, but I'm pretty sure
ugh,
it has
they're all incredible, and, like, just like Lilo and Stitch is found family and incredible soundtrack and sweeping visuals and one of the best flying scenes ever, like,
the music makes
incredible.
me feel like I'm like, "You know what? Maybe I will get a dragon." So, when was the first time you saw this movie? You said this was your favorite of the 3, so tell me about your time with this movie.
I'm pretty sure I saw this movie when it came out,
Okay.
which I was that in theaters or was it on
Can't be in theaters. It wouldn't be on the show if it was on
that's
theaters.
fair, that's fair.
Yeah.
Um, so it
So someone
must
rented it for you, a loved one perchance?
yeah, it might have been, like a late Blockbuster rental or perhaps an
Mm,
early Netflix delivery, um,
true, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and yeah, and then, it was also frequently on television because they were running it in the lead up to the premiere of the series.
Yeah, and for me, I missed this completely. I don't because I watched Stitch Has a Glitch when it came out.
Mm.
So I don't know what happened. I mean, if you think about it, 2003, I was starting high school. So it kind of makes sense that I wasn't, like, really keeping my finger on the pulse
Yeah,
of, like,
your
I got
Disney
it.
Channel years were starting to fade a little.
Yeah, I was at that point very cool and very busy doing other very cool things. So it makes sense that it missed my radar, but I don't know how Lilo and Stitch maybe if they had a bigger budget for advertising, because that came out in 2005.
Maybe.
I was on my I was a junior in high school, and I'm just like, "Yeah." So I don't know. I cannot tell you what happened. But either way, I think I bought it. There's a very big good chance I have it, which would be concerning.
But
Or
we
not,
do
I don't know.
have the DVD of Stitch the movie. It is I'm pretty sure it has already passed from my parents' collection to mine, and it is downstairs in my house, right?
Good. It'll be worth something someday.
Someday.
So the plot, we always gotta kinda let the listeners, because maybe you're short on time, you don't have an hour, but you have an hour to listen to this episode for some reason, and you like us more. So we're gonna tell you about the plot. We'll kinda, ping pong it back and forth. But we start, and we're in Hawaii. We're still there, and they're having fun, they're having reminiscent moments. They're at the beach. Nani is not featured in this movie, barely at all. Very sad for Nani fans everywhere. She's just there being annoyed for most of the movie. She's, like, 10 feet behind being annoyed, which is similar to the first movie, but kinda sad because I really like Nani. Either way, they're at the beach, David's there. They're debating whether they're gonna go meet a couple, and I was like, "I thought we were over that," but I thought it was like, "We decided and you're married and you're together." Because I think at the end of the movie, there's, like, a montage where they, like, basically seem like they're, like, living together, so I was, like, very
Yeah,
surprised by that plot point.
the montage at the end of the film definitely indicates, like, they're in a relationship and they are together raising
Yeah,
Lilo and Stitch.
yeah,
Um,
and then this, they're
but
like
their exact definition of what that means is never really stated, and it sort of continues as a plot point throughout the series.
good. I'm glad because no, David is he's the best Disney prince,
He's
and
fantastic.
they're like, whether he's Olmec from Heroes to the Temple or not, I justice for David. Anyway,
Justice for
so
David.
so we find out that Stitch is kind of struggling. Like Tigger, he is the only one of his kind, and he is like having an issue with that. He's just reflecting upon that and be like, I wish I had some cousins. And Lila's like, remember Ohana? We're all Ohana. We kind of went over this. That was kind of the whole plot of the first movie, but he's like still kind of sad.
I mean, we did talk a little bit about it in the first movie, like, he got the Ugly Duckling book, and he said, you know, I'm lost, I'm
That's true.
alone." And yes, he has his found family, but, like, we've talked a lot on and off about, like, representation in the Lorcana
Hmm.
community, and that's I think, a little bit what Stitch is dealing with here, is, like, he doesn't know where his place in society is because there is nobody else like him.
It's true. Look at you. You're a responsible movie watcher because I'm sitting here being like, we have enough Stitches. And you're like, Stitch deserves his family. And so you're right. So Stitch,
I think it's really
le-
rude that Jubba lies to him. to start
Well,
with.
he's kind of a criminal, so, he's on thin ice, as we find out, because Jumbo in the first movie was pardoned from space jail, and allowed to be on Earth. And so we find out that Gantu did not go to jail, he just got fired. He's not bound by any kind of law, he's just a free agent, and he gets hired by a mad scientist named Dr. Jacques von Hamsterville. Um and which is apparently a coworker or
Uh,
colleague of Jumba.
yes, they worked together on the experiment
Yes. So
system.
Jumba is hired and he's like, I already failed this once, but this time I probably got it. Let's go to Hawaii. And he's like, you're hired. So they go to Hawaii. They're pretty sure that they're there to get Stitch, and Gantu's like, "Guess what? I'm not." And meanwhile, Jumbo's like, "Hide this gumball, hide this thing. We don't know what it is." He's
It
like,
very
"Hide it."
much looks like a gumball machine, you're
It
right.
does. I did refer to it as a gumball machine in this write up because
That is exactly what it looks like, and that is exactly how it behaves, honestly. Just
so he puts the
high-tech
gumball
gumball
machine.
machine.
Yeah, he puts the gumball machine in Pleakley in what Pleakley later describes as I was in the boot locker. So
That's a
he
great
hides.
Pleakley impression.
Thank you. I really like, I practice every night. Um, so yeah, Pleakley's in the Foot Locker. Lilo and Stitch are doing some stuff. They end up in space, but very briefly. They come back almost as quickly as they went up, and they come back.
They hotwire the spaceship because
Yeah,
they can. They have a spaceship, it's
they
casual.
do. They take it's Jumbo's and they go up, and then they're like, yeah, well, and they come back down. And I don't know. I tried to like figure out like what was the point of them going up there, and I don't quite have one, but they did go up there briefly. To freak out Nani. Nani's freaked out. She's like, "You shouldn't have gone to space. That was very scary." But they find out that Pleakley was hiding this little gumball machine, and I think, like, during the exposition of Dr. Hamsterval, he kind of explains a little bit what he's looking for, and they get one little gumball, they get 625, but then everything else is with Lilo and Stitch, and they find out that if you drop them in water, it which sure, it turns into what it is. It releases it from the Pokeball.
So they're
Uh
they're, like, dehydrated, essentially. It's like
Exactly. It's like those little foam things where you'd put the pill in the water and be like, "Oh, a sponge. It's a dinosaur. Have fun."
yep, it's exactly like those things we had when we were small.
And then it's done and you're like, "Well, I don't know what that was about, but that was kind of fun." It was a fun few seconds. So they decide to do one themselves. They're like, "Let's just do it." And they drop one in and it turns out it's electric type Stitch. And who immediately leaves. He's out. He immediately does as Stitches do. I know they're not called Stitches. They're called experiments. But he leaves. He's out.
He is a Stitch type
He is.
experiment. Like, not all of them look similar to Stitch, but I think very intentionally they made Sparky look like Stitch because Stitch was looking for someone like him.
Yeah. I called it Pika Stitch, which I think is copyright complicated, but
You're not
he is
wrong, though.
yeah, it is a little on the nose. So they're trying to intimidate Jimba meanwhile because they're like, "We need the rest of them. Where are they?" And they're like, "Just so you know, we got 625 right here, buddy, and he is just as powerful, just as strong. He's just as good as Stitch. He speaks English perfectly." And they release him, and it turns out he is a experiment that likes to make sandwiches.
He's got all the same powers as Stitch and an advanced language processor, but that means he's a lazy bum for
Yes,
whatever reason.
yeah, and he likes he's very focused on sandwiches,
Sandwiches
thus
is
his name
all he
Reuben.
cares about. Thus, later at the end of the series, he becomes named Reuben.
Yeah, and it makes sense because I mean, if I'm ranking sandwiches, Reuben is at the top. So,
It's pretty up there.
invented in Omaha, Nebraska. If
Look at
everyone
that.
needs to know that for the time where they're on their sandwich cruise related trivia show. So that they're just like whatever. They're not doing too good. They're not getting another Jumba. He's just kind of hanging around. So Cobra gets phoned up because they're like, Cobra, we need your help. We were kind of in an intergalactic situation again. So Cobra shows back up and
The one thing
he,
Nani does right in this movie,
yeah,
the
he's like,
one thing Nani is useful for is phoning Cobra in.
yes. Meanwhile, Pleakley is calling every number in the galaxy trying to find Gantu, which is fine. That's happening also.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. That was one thing that kind of upset me about this movie, so I was mad at it, but then it made me laugh, and I'm like, because like, I could watch Stitch just, like, paint a dollhouse, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is good." So, like, anything Stitch does, I'm in. So that was it cheated a little bit with that. It got me. So, but either way, Cobra Bubble shows up. They look at a lighthouse and they go, "That lighthouse hasn't been lit in years." And then they, like, move back to what they were doing. So, like, bookmark that, I guess.
Gotta
So
plant that seed somewhere.
yeah, they had to explicitly be like, "What is that? Don't worry, it hasn't been lit in years." And he's like, "Well, we gotta give the experiments to this evil hamster." And Lilo's like, "Mm-mm, Ohana." I will say they abused the word Ohana and cousins a little. They really went hard on Ohana. I was like, "I think we know what Ohana is. We've discussed it at length."
So it's interesting that they start using the word cousin in this because cousin is used extensively in Hawaii. Like that is what Native Hawaiians often call each other. It's like that's how they greet
Yeah.
each other. It's like, "What's up, cousin?"
Yeah, so it is culturally significant. Is it bad, though, that I have such Disney brain that I'm like, "Oh, it's like when you're at Ohana at the Polynesian resort, and they say, 'Hello, cousins,' and they're like, 'Welcome, cousins, here's the bread,' and they give you the tour," and I'm like, "Yes, I have a cousin too, when I went to the Ohana restaurant." So I was like, I can vouch that I have heard this term, but in the most inauthentic way. Medium authentic, I don't know. I won't
I
speak
mean,
to the authenticity
it's sort
of
of all,
Polynesian.
it comes from the same place. They all did
Yeah.
their research in actual Polynesia.
Yeah, so she's like, "This is my Ohana, that's my Ohana, technically Pleakley and Jumbo is Ohana, they're all Ohana, and we're all," and she's like, "By the way, nobody," and the minute you're Ohana, I think at one point she's even kind of like, "Hey, councilwoman, you're kind of Ohana." I'm like, "Okay, we gotta calm down, we can't all, like, it's gonna be very expensive at Christmas."
You're not wrong.
So apparently, this is my first time on a so the grand councilwoman comes from the ocean. I should have rewound it of, like, was she waiting in, like, was that a prep? Like, did Cobra say, "Get in the ocean"? Had she been there? Is that, like, a thing she does?
I think that's just where she lands her ship. I don't think she actually comes out of the ocean.
It seemed like she came out, and I was like, "What were you doing down there?" So, tough to say. Um,
Maybe the spaceship turns into a submarine and she came down somewhere else and, like, popped up in uh, I don't know.
we're not privy to such
No.
information, so but she does appear, and she's like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna get this all on track as I am wont to do, and dispose of Electric Stitch." However, Lilo, Stitch, and Pika Stitch intervene, and they go back to space. They're back in space again. They get on the ship with, Dr. Hemserville, and, which I was like, "That's like hamster wheel with
Yeah.
a German accent," but he's kind of French. It's complicated. He grew on me too. I hated him when he came on the screen, but I'm like, "He is a little funny."
He's
And
hilarious,
that
and
was tough for me to swallow
he
as a
gets he
person.
gets better as the series goes on. And when I say better, I sort of mean worse because the puns get
Yeah,
increasingly.
he had big Doofenshmirtz energy,
Mhm.
so yeah, I was like, "Alright," I laughed a few times, great.
They get captured very quickly.
They do, and it gets sinister quickly because Jumba's like, "I'm going to put you in this very dark room of very nefarious medical equipment, and I'm gonna clone you." I will say Wikipedia said at this point he was going to be vivisected. I'm like, "They did not say that. You put that in Wikipedia author. You made it a little darker than it was," but
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, you see the beam that is, like, about to cut Stitch in half,
that's
like,
okay, so I guess maybe they're being more they're like, "Listen, I'm
they're just
ready
being
to get."
they're being precise with their
So,
language.
Stitch is about to get, chopped, and then Lilo is about to get beamed into an intergalactic zoo. He's gonna sell her to a zoo, but guess who's there? Electric Stitch. He's back. So they're doing lots of little, like, whatever that is, like,
Yeah,
run
he has a pretty evil laugh.
yeah, and they're just all running around, being little rascals, and then so this part I got scared because, like, open a space window, which, like, can you open a space
Vacuum of
window?
space.
Yeah, I thought Lilo was about to get sucked into the vacuum of space, but she doesn't. She just stands near the window, and then the gumball machine goes out, and then Jumbo reaches for it, and he grabs it, and he's like, "Yeah," and then it explodes.
Yeah.
All of the little stitches, all 623, are scattered across the state of Hawaii. You get to see them fall in little places.
It's funny to me that they all somehow end up in Hawaii.
I mean, it's in the first movie, they did say this, they're like, "This is very statistically unlikely that he would land in Hawaii," and they're like, "What are the odds it would happen 623 more times?"
Well, to be
100.
fair, at least at that point,
They were
it
over.
they weren't that far away.
It's true, yeah. So yeah, they fall about. So the Grand Councilwoman's like, "You know what we have to do? We have to get rid of him. And once again, Lilo's like, I have one word for you, Ohana. And she's like, dang it, you got me again. She's like, I can't argue with that. She's like, so you got to do it. It's your job because Lilo does. where where does Pikachu? Not Pikachu. That's right out. That's not even on the right menu. Where does Electric Stitch end up? Well, that is the defunct lighthouse that hasn't worked in 100 years.
She finds a purpose for him, just
Yeah.
like she's going to find a purpose for all of the other experiments that they come across.
Which I do kinda hints that they're going a direction of, like, the Flintstones where, like, it's like, "Well, this is Toaster Monster, and this is Lighthouse," and I'm like, "Well, I mean" but I don't know, I haven't seen the show. Maybe it's not maybe they don't have, like, "I'm Lighthouse guy." Like, can you leave the lighthouse? I hope so. They
Yeah,
don't need a
he
lighthouse during the day.
yeah, Sparky leaves the lighthouse at some point. He
Okay,
he
good.
makes a guest appearance in another episode.
That's good.
This is also the series is where we get Stitch's girlfriend, Angel.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't know I was, I jumped into, Lad last night, and I was like, "Oh, there's so many," and yeah, Stitch has a
Yes, he
lady,
does.
which
And that's also where we find that Lilo is not the only little girl in her little class that ends up with an experiment for a pet.
which is good because, like, her class has some real stinkers of girls, so hopefully the other girl is, like, nice because she's not
Ugh,
great. Like, my goodness, those girls are terrible. Like, I'm like,
they are terrible.
"Geez, you've never seen, like, a kid with ADHD? Be nice." But they're like, "No." I'm like,
Yeah.
I was not liked as a kid, but I wasn't bullied that hard. These kids suck, but
Yeah. Kids are mean.
yeah, so yeah, at this point, it's very evident that this is the kickoff of a show because they do a lot of little montaging of being like, "Ooh, what's gonna happen next?"
Yeah.
And then the Grand Councilwoman's like, "Peace out," and then Pleakley and Jumba, seemingly forget that they were part of the Ohana, and they're like, "Oh, we wanted oh, man, we missed it." So you kinda are like I think Pleakley and Jumba seem very happy here, but they kinda are like, "Oh, we wanted to leave." And I'm like, "I don't think you can. You're a criminal, first off."
Yeah. They I know at some point in the series we get to learn more about Pleakley's family.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember if we learned any about where Jumba comes from, but we learn about Pleakley's family and, like, where he comes from and why he misses home,
Okay.
and also why maybe he doesn't wanna go home.
Is it because they don't accept him for his beautiful self who wears wigs and dresses and really feels beautiful? Because I'm so happy he found happiness.
Actually, a lot of the rest of his family does that too, if I
Okay,
remember
good. It's
correctly.
they're like, "Listen, we don't have gender conformity in this family. We have another issue, but it's not that. In this family, we are allowed to really feel as beautiful as we need to." Um, so that's the movie. It ends, and they're like, "You should watch the show." And then a month later, the show came out, and I was like, "Well, I'm watching this 2 decades too late." So, or right on time because now I can
Yeah, I
watch
was gonna
all of
say,
it.
I think the film actually closes with the theme song for the show.
Yeah, because 'cause it's got the, like, "Akipakaboo-ha." Is that, like, where it came from? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Because I had heard that through the
somewhere.
zeitgeist. So, yeah, through absorbing Disney culture,
Cultural osmosis.
yeah, yeah. So, so I will say, I obviously, you said this is your favorite of the 3, so what are some highlights of things that you're like, "You know what? They got me there. That was good."
I appreciated that they sort of explored, like, Jabba's creative process. Like, it makes sense that it took him a long time and a lot of different iterations to get to Stitch, and seeing some of that, like, I thought built out the world more, it made it very interesting. It's very simplistic for what we did get, but, like, as you see more throughout the series, like, it it varies a lot, the different kinds of creatures that he experimented with. Um, I
Yeah.
think it was also really interesting to me, like, obviously the found family trope, but also, like, how that grows and is more complex than just, like, "My family is gone," or "My family sucks, but now I have my people." It's like, well, that's not always enough.
Yeah. It's a journey, and they
Yeah,
kinda showed that, like, yes, Stitch found a home, and he feels love in a way he never has, but there's still parts of him that, are bigger than Lilo can be, and that's
right.
nothing against Lilo. So that was a good part because yeah, sometimes with found family, like, well, that's it, and I solved all my trauma. And, Stitch has been through a lot.
Yeah, and that's not how it works in the real world, you know?
No, it, no. But the good news is, it was cute. I mean, it's a cute movie.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. So, like, okay, with the prequels and sequels, I'm always like, okay, did it, like, cancel out anything from the first movie where I'm like, "Great, you unwound." Like, Mulan 2 did a great job of being like, "Oh my god," stomped all over some of the progress we made in the first movie, and, like, I don't think it undid anything from
No.
Lilo and Stitch. It was funny most of the time, so props there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt like it was good. I was just I felt hoodwinked that they're like, "It's the movie." It's kinda like that. But to be fair, what they wanted to conquer, they couldn't, and we can't have 623, movies, so they
Right.
did what they had to do for what they were
And
trying to
to
do.
be fair, they don't cover all 620, however, experiments in the series. We get I think it's I wanna say it's, like, 150 to 250, somewhere in there is, like,
So
all the experiments that we meet. We don't meet all of them.
did they say what happens
Um,
to when they don't meet? They're like, "Well, next
um,
time."
not all of them. We get names for most of them,
Okay.
um, but there are still some that we don't know. I actually so on 626 day, the Illuminators did an impromptu stream, and I pulled up the database of
Okay.
all of the experiments and just had people put random numbers in the chat and talked about the experiment that corresponded to that number.
So, yeah, you're, I mean, probably the world's expert at this point because I don't think there's a lot of people hunting down that data. So, um, yeah, I think it was, it's hard because this movie suffers from the same thing that Mulan suffered from and Kronk's New Groove suffered from, where and Lion King 1.5, which is an S-rated movie on our current thing,
Mm,
is the quality of those movies are on a different level of, like, quality.
yeah.
Like, when you watch Lilo and Stitch, the original, it's truly beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. The soundtrack is beautiful. It's just smooth like butter. It's just it's so
Well, and,
rich.
like, the watercolor backgrounds and the animation and
Yeah. And
yeah,
I put in my note that, like, this isn't to dog anybody that worked on this film because, like, I don't know if the animators are like, "Oh, you're someone's talking about my movie." Like, I think that this shows why animated movies take a long time and cost a lot of money because
yeah.
as famously, these movies did not get as much time and money as the other ones. I think the original Stitch took, like, 4 years to produce, and this one, they're like, did it in a year. Like, "Get it out." So,
Right.
obviously, there was discrepancy in at least time, and I'm gonna assume money. Um
Yeah. The budget for this film was, uh, normally it's on Wikipedia.
They probably that's the
Um,
thing, some of these movies, it's, like, so mysterious. They're,
yeah,
like it's on, like, not even on anyone's spreadsheet, they're like, "We don't talk about it." Um, and, like, they don't have box office numbers either, so it's just, like, these mysterious movies that just appear and no one ever talks about. So we may never know,
we may
and
never
that's
know.
probably by design because 'cause they're like, "Don't worry about it." Um, so it stuck out. So that's, like, a negative is that because, like, the original is just, like, a 10 out of 10 across the board, like, Lilo blinking once a minute was disturbing, like, 'cause you're like, "Why is she doing that?" And, like, there's just moments where you're like, "That doesn't" like, even Stitch's colors looked wrong, like, I was like, "That's not his color." Like
There are definitely times where you can see, like, the animation was handed off from one studio to another,
yeah, there
where,
were 2
like
studios on it, I think, too.
yeah, the, like, face shapes change and some of the colorations change, and, uh, it's it is unfortunate because, like, I think that a bigger budget and less rushed animation would have benefited all of these movies that we're talking about, all of the direct to video films,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
and it's
you can only spend so much money.
yeah, and I think, I mean, I think in the first episode I talked about, like, one of the first things John Lasseter did was he's like, "We're done," which is very funny if you think about how many sequels Pixar ended up doing later. But when he, like, became, like, the creative director of the merged Disney Pixar, he was like, "We're done with direct to sequels except for Tinkerbell. You can still make Tinkerbell movies," which is fine because those are pretty good. because I think it bothered him and probably bothers other animators and other people that it's like, it's got the Disney name, it's got all these beloved things, and sometimes it has a pretty okay plot, but it's just like, "Oh, brother," like, some
It's considered like a second class movie.
yeah, and so it's kinda like, "Well, do we wanna make a B-team movie?"
Right.
But, we're comparing it to its peers, so I'm not gonna knock it down against its peers for its animation quality, but I just thought that really stood out because, like, I'm like, "Wow, I really underestimated how beautiful the first one is," with, like, the second one, I'm like, "Oh, no, that doesn't look
Yeah.
very good at all." Um, like, as far as, like, things that I was like, I don't love," there weren't really a lot I mean, I kinda, like, was like, "Nani, David," but, like, we had an hour and we had to introduce an entire new series, so, like, I get it. We didn't have
Yeah. Needed
um
needed a new villain, needed, a whole new group of characters and a whole new mechanic of, like, Gantu and Hamsterville and Reuben, like, all kind of
Y
needing to intermingle. It's like, you only have time for so many people and
yeah.
so much screen time.
I'll be honest, I thought there was gonna be a Gontu redemption something. No, Gontu's like, "Guess what? This is who I am."
He bad.
Much like my legendary card in Lorcana, I am not loved by any, except for some niche people.
Big dummy.
Yeah, so nope, no one cares for Gontu because Gontu doesn't have any turnaround, which is a bummer. But, what can you do? Uh, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, Pleakley, he's there. I love that little guy. I love everything he does. He's so
His devotion to finding Jumba is actually really sweet. I think, like,
yeah.
their friendship has clearly progressed
Mhm.
because originally they were not friends. They were colleagues out of necessity.
I mean, kinda like they were both sentenced to work to each other, yeah, like, I mean, he was a criminal and he's a, like, academic, like, a researcher, and they're like
Yeah.
and, but yeah, I was like, "Man," every scene they were in, I was very happy. Um, we found out Stitch has a little weird bedroom, so he has his own bedroom, so that's quite fun. Lilo is still the most sweet little child. I Scrump wasn't in it, I don't think I saw Scrump once. Okay,
You
I hate this
know?
movie, it's on the D tier. I just but I don't remember it, but maybe she's past Scrum. Maybe now that she has Stitch, she's like, "I don't need Scrum,"
Oh,
but
no, Scrump definitely comes
they
back.
they blew up Scrum.
Scrump definitely comes back in the series. They did blow her
They
up
did
a
bl
little bit in the
the
final fight in
I
Lilo
just
and
remembered
Stitch, but
that,
I
yeah.
think they fix her, they sew her back together.
Why not?
'Cause I think we see her in that final montage that we were talking about earlier.
Okay, good,
I think Lilo takes her places.
good. I'm less mad. I had a moment, I'm back together, it's okay. Um, so then, like, the final question is, I mean, this question has come up quite a bit because there's a lot of Stitch fans. There's a lot of Stitch aficionados. So there's been discussion about like what needs to come that hasn't come out yet. But is there anything just particularly from this 63-minute long jaunt where you're like, you gotta get that in the game?
So, I think Hamsterville is an easy add,
Yeah,
and I think his ship would actually be a really fun location to add.
yeah,
But I think the experiments need to be in the game. I think Sparky is a great start. I think you can't miss Angel and Reuben. Angel's
yeah,
not in this, but, like, tangentially related with
yeah.
the series.
I allow it.
Uh, and there might be a couple of other experiments that might be, worth mentioning, but those are, like, the big
Yeah.
3 that I would pick out.
Grumpy New York sandwich alien was like, "Okay, well, yeah, obviously that's gotta get in the game." I was like, "I don't understand how that's happening, but I'm happy it's here, and I'm sad I didn't know about it sooner." Um, so yeah, and obviously we need more Jumbo because we have 1 Jumbo and he's
Yes,
come
and we need
on.
Pleakley!
Yes, yeah, so if we had, like, them doing their little, like, antics, like, I would love to have Pleakley in disguise because, I mean, come on, how fun would that be? Like, how we would Flotsam Jetsam synergy if we could have Pleakley
Pleakley
Jumba?
Jumba synergy, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm like, "We've done the Flotsam Jetsam, we get it. We got another deal over here. They're not evil.
They need some love.
I don't know what they are. They're just kinda living there. I don't they're neutral. They're a neutral
The
party."
comic relief.
Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely more Jumba. Any Pleakley.
Any
Uh,
Pleakley.
Scrump is now in the game, but just, like, he's on the card, and the card's not out yet, and
Scrump would be interesting as an item.
Yeah, that's true. Scrump is not a sentient being. Scrump has
But
no agency.
here's the thing. There's an experiment who is essentially like a ghost and takes control of Scrump.
That's horrifying. Oh, so back to the ring. Okay, wow.
Yeah. So I don't
Polter
know exactly
Polter Scrump.
mechanically, yeah, mechanically how that would work in the game, but like
Wow.
it could be that experiment, but it might also function as a card named Scrump.
Yeah. Ugh. It could shift. Well, an item could shift. I don't know. I don't know. The game is so young. Who knows what
Yes.
the future holds?
Who knows what wild mechanics they come up with in the future.
Yeah. So, I think I'm ready for more Lilo because we have little Lilo who's become nearly unplayable, and then we have Lilo with a gun, which is quite scary.
And then we have the new Cake Lilo
That's
from
true. That's
Shimmering
true.
Skies.
So, and
Peanut
she's
butter
like,
cake
"I'm
Lilo.
support with one." I'm like, "Lilo, please, I need something from you." So I'm
I
hoping.
want to see a Floodborn shift Lilo.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we could have, like, Galactic Senator Lilo or Galactic Emperor and be like, "Yeah, she actually runs this place now for some reason." We
That
don't
would be
know,
so
it's the
cool.
imagination, it's a Floodborn. It can be anything. Someone I did see on, Reddit, someone said, "Hey, guys, they left an Easter egg of, Anna in the next movie," and then they're like, "That's a Dreamborn card, and that is just a dream of the character. This is not a preview for the movie." And it was very you could tell the person was very excited, and then a million people are like, "You're very wrong," and I'm like, "Sorry, dude, Reddit is not the place you should go if you're looking for people to be nice." So they were
Sorry about
destroyed.
that. Yeah.
Um,
Although Night Anna in Frozen 3 would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, objectively, there's so many things now. I'm like, well, now that you mention it, Giant Fairy would be quite fun, and why not Giant Fairy? We should be getting more fairies this set, though. So this is completely tangential but it is not because that was the direct-to-video sequels that was allowed to proceed after all the other ones were canceled. They're like, I
That's
like what's
true.
happening here. I like the pirate one, and I liked it too. I watched it. I don't
The
know
Tinkerbell
why.
series is fun.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to ride. I'm so excited. I keep humble bragging on every episode, but I'm just that excited. But, like, I'm gonna ride the Tinkerbell ride where you get to go it's like 2 minutes. It's like a minute. I think it's a
You get to go
very
to Pixie Hollow though.
yeah, and I get to see Cheese, which I didn't know there's a character
Oh
named
my
Cheese, but his name's
yes, the
Cheese.
mouse.
Very excited and scared about my wallet. So, I'm gonna be like, "I bought a cheese stuffy," and I'm like, "What's a cheese stuffy?" I'll be like, "It's this mouse from the show I haven't seen, but I really like him."
He's adorable.
So now, we've talked about the movie. We talked about what we like. Um, you know, it's this is like it's not really like it's hard. It's not. Do you think this movie was as good, better, or worse than the original?
I do think it's worse than the original.
Yeah,
It's
probably.
hard to be as good as the original though, because the original is so good.
I don't think anyone's gonna answer yes to any because I just think that's the nature of the beast. Like, that'd be so weird if like something's like, wow, they really. I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean, if you had my husband on for Lion King 2, he would tell you it's better than the original.
people
He would be
really
wrong,
people are quite
but
excited about that movie, and I'm excited. I'm like everybody else excitement is getting me excited, about Lion King 2, because a lot of people guessed that when I said we had our first S tier. So speaking of, we have our current list. So we've got Lion King 1.5 sitting on S tier. Now, for our listeners, this is relative, it's objective, subjective. There's no science here. So like for example, The Little Mermaid 2 is the first one we did. Do I still think it's a B? I don't know. It might be a C. It's complicated, but that's where it is right now. So we've got Lion King 1.5 sitting on an S tier. We got Little Mermaid 2, Ursula's Sister's Return. We got Kronk sitting at a B tier. And then we have Mulan 2 sitting at D. The lowest is F. Nothing's been an F yet. Nothing's been an absolute abject failure. So, I always let the guests go first because they're usually much kinder than I am. So, if you had to put this on the shelf, where would you put it?
I, relatively speaking, I think I would put this either low A or high B tier. Like, I would put it above Little Mermaid 2 and Kronk's New Groove, but
Yeah.
it's not anywhere near Lion King 1.5 for me.
I think I have to put it in B given that it's literally called The Movie and is light on the movie. Like, it literally gets to the hour mark and they're like, "And we're out. Watch the show." Anyway, so, like, I feel like knowing that, like, it barely it's just, like, it's slipping right under the wire of being a movie,
Mhm.
which, to be fair, Kronk's did too. Kronk's was, like, 2 episodes of a TV show where they're like, "It's a movie," and I'm like, "Don't lie to me. I'm smarter than that." I know that this was a project you couldn't find a home for and you made it a movie, and I'm smart. Um, but I think B is fair. I am debating once we get halfway through because right now we've done up to 20 and this is number uh 5. So we have 24 left. So I'm tempted at like the half point, like 15 in to be like, all right, everybody, should we vote anything up or down? Would you be gravely sad if it sat at a B?
Um, mm, are we ranking things within the tier, or are you just
Oh, that's a
putting
good
them in
point.
order?
Yeah, I could put it. Yeah. So
'Cause
yeah,
I was
we'll
gonna
put it.
say, can you put it in front of Little
That's
Mermaid?
true. Yeah, and then I'm gonna put Kronk behind in front of Little Mermaid too, because I think Kronk's was well, that's Little Mermaid 2, I like the more I think about it, the more I liked it because it was so bizarre. Because like it was just so like they really went with their heart's desire on that movie, and that I think was
It really was
bravery.
just straight up the reverse of the first
Yeah.
one.
It's like, "Oh, man, I wanna be in the ocean so bad," and I'm like, "Ariel, you really should have thought about this." You didn't, apparently. And then she built my favorite thing in any movie, she built a literal and metaphorical wall around herself. I was like, "That's really cool." So anyway, I agree. So, it'll go B, the best B so far.
Best B so far. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here for that.
Yeah, and so, we have like we mentioned, there's 2 more Stitch movies. Now, the way you're leaning, I mean, it looks like Leroy and Stitch isn't gonna top it. I remember liking Stitch Has a Glitch, so I feel like I need to do that at some point soon because now
I'm
I'm
really
just so
interested
curious.
to see if you can get Brandon, to weigh in on that one because
It'd be funny if he's like, "I don't make statements on such things." Like, it's that controversial, or he's like, "I don't want my career tied to this." But possibly. So, alright, so we'll put it on the best B. Um, so yeah, that's it. That's
that's our show.
Stitch, the movie. Um,
Stitch.
so well, thank you for being a guest on Movie Night at the End. It was exciting to finally get you on the show because I've been like,
Yeah,
you wanna get in here? Want to get in here? So now you're in, and I already booked you for the next episode, which will be much more historic and dark. Which so preview for that. But
very
before
exciting.
we say goodbye, where can people find and follow the fun adventures you have in the world of Lorcana?
Yeah, so you can always find me on Twitter at LorcanaBelle, on Instagram at Lorcana.belle. I am chronically online, so you can always find me on Discord. I am the community admin for both the Illuminateers as well as the Love to Lore community. And I also am part of the Ladies Who Lore podcast, which you can find on socials at Ladies Who Lore.
Yeah. I will say Carolyn, will just pop up with places, and it's
I'm
always like
everywhere.
and it's like but it's always like with a helpful thing. It's like kinda like Siri, but in a good way where, like, you say something and then she pops up. She's like, "Well, actually, that came out in 2023." And you're like, "She's here." And so I think I
It's
said on Twitter, and I meant it, that every time you pop up, I'm like, "She's here." It just makes it a little brighter wherever
I
you show up.
appreciate you. Yeah,
So,
it's funny. I will sit in the green room in a recording setup much like this, but not on camera during Let's Talk Lorcana with the Illuminateers. And anytime Liam says, you know, I saw this one deck, or I was talking to somebody, I can't find what their name is. I am already on Twitter or on Inkdex, like finding what he's asking for and dropping it in the private chat so he can immediately pull it up on screen.
I might get you to dial into some of my work meetings and be like, "Oh, actually, I do know what that is because I have a Carolyn in my ear." So, but thank
I
you.
am the behind the scenes producer.
Well, that's wonderful, and thank you for having this silly adventure with me.
This is great.
And thank you to the listeners for joining me on another episode. As you know, there is always room for more at the end. So if there's anything you'd like to hear me talk about, please feel free to email me at contact@thelorekeepersin or reach me at Twitter or Instagram, and the handles linked in the social description. Also, make sure to like or subscribe. It makes me feel good. It's crazy. I read every comment. I'm like, it's happening. So anything you comment, like, or subscribe, I will appreciate you. As always, thank you for hanging out with me today. We're always happy to have you stop by the Lore Keepers Inn, no matter where your quest may take you. And remember, if you don't know where to find us, just take the second start of the right exit and head straight on till morning.